Franky during Saboady. I know. Mm-mm-mm. During Saboady, Franky, was there with the crew. He was doing shit. They were like, "Hey, we're here, and our captain apparently is one of these supernova guys. He's actually, a wanted guy that's like, known. We should like keep a low profile and everything else. Shit kind of went south when Luffy hit the Celestial Dragon. Luffy being Luffy, he's like, I don't care. You don't do that shit to one of my friends. Then Marines started coming, but Franky was going to get keys to save Kami, the little mermaid, you know, this girl. As he was going to get the keys, Rayleigh already handled everybody in the area, knocked him out with hockey, and then also ripped her collar off with hockey. Boom. He went to grab the keys and he was like, wait. So I went to go get these keys for no reason. And he's like, Rayleigh's like, well, my bad, I just didn't want her to die, So he ripped off the collar, and then Franky was like, damn. Then they went back to Rayleigh's house. They were talking about Gold Roger and One Piece and all that, right? Then they left, and then the pacifista showed up, then Kuma showed up, and then everything went south. And he was like, oh shit, he couldn't even do shit. He was like, he was just one of the ones that got sent. And when he got sent to Vegapunk, or island that knew about Vegapunk, one of the people that knew about Vegapunk, that knew about his creations and shit. He didn't have cola, so then when he was there, he was like kind of, his personality changed. He wasn't so Americanized. He was more English and distinguished, like those people over in England. He was more like that, more refined and all that extra shit. But then, the kid was like, no, that's not how you were when you got here. Gave him some cola, and he was like, hey, I rock with this shit right here. I'm super. I ain't none of that other shit. Then he was working on upgrades, and then, afterwards, 2 years later, he came back. But during Saboody, it was sad. Everybody got sent, where they were and everything else, right? Strength is 77%, speed 76, 77 for his durability, 78 for his endurance, 80 for his intelligence, 82 for his experience, 79 for his close skills, 78 for his range skills, 78 for his recoup, 78 for his hacks, and overall power score of a 78.3 for Franky during Saboody. So be cool calling on the corner, and be super cool on the corner.